We have completed 2.5 days of the event, and we have just a half day left in the Makers Summit 2021. So get ready because we intend to make the remaining time you have with us a memorable experience. But before we proceed to the next session, please make sure that your phones are on silent, that you're taking notes, and most importantly, interacting, engaging, and networking with us on our feed, on the chats, and Twitter using the hashtag the Maker Summit 2021. We are all waiting to hear from you. Now, coming back to the topic at hand, the impact of technology. It's gigantic. Everything is faster and more accessible due to it. I mean, even this event wouldn't be possible without the technology. Today, small businesses can compete with multi-million dollar corporations, and technology makes it happen. Even creating your own business needs just an internet connection to access the tools and resources necessary for it. Most of the top businesses today are operating at a scale that was probably unimaginable for the offline business owners back in the day. But the thing is to understand and know just how to leverage technology to create a product geared for high growth. And that is exactly what we are focusing on today. In our panel discussion, filled with people from the product world who have already been leveraging technology on a scale to grow and improve their businesses for years. Our first panelist is Surbi Vashisht, practice health startup business at HPE. Our next panelist is Badri Vasudevan, Senior Director at Rizapay. We also have Saurabh Tiwari, CTO of Policy Bazaar. Next, we have Anirvan Chaudhary, Investment Team, Bloom Ventures. And finally, we have Kshitij Shah, Principal, 314 Capital. Hi guys, I hope you're all doing well, and I'd hate to take any more time from you. So Kshitij, I'd hand over the stage to you. Please take it over.
Thanks, Akash. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend your fantastic Sunday afternoon with us. We're privileged. Survi, Saurabh, Anirvan, Badri, welcome again. Thank you so much for you guys taking the time as well. What we hope is going to be an exciting discussion. It's 2021. We all understand that any business that you run, be it a kirana store, an oil and gas refinery, or a global conglomerate, on technology itself, or a car manufacturer, everything has technology as a foundational pillar, right? But what we want to learn from you, all of you stakeholders are in some ways leaders in the space in the market that you serve and are part of, right? How have you leveraged technology to become a moat, not just a foundational pillar for your business? How you're creating that edge? What are you seeing in terms of insights? How are startups disrupting incumbents? Is that even a fair assessment today in 2021 when the level playing field has completely changed because of what has happened in the last year? Badri just joined us back, and welcome, Badri. So let's do a quick round of introductions. What I really want for the audience is, since all of these are very different businesses, HP, Razorpay, Policy Bazaar, and Anirvan, fellow investor, of course, with Bloom, we want to understand what does product mean for you. We want to understand what does growth mean for you. Survi, do you want to go first there?
Yes. Thanks, Kshitij, and thanks Inc42 for having me. My name is Surabhi, and I am a part of Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Hewlett Packard Enterprise is a very large IT infrastructure and services organization. We've been around for more than 50 years now in the industry, and I've been with HP for a fairly long time. An engineering grad, I've done some coding, and then did my MBA in marketing. Moved to the business side, and now I head the startup practice at HPE. Thanks, Kshitij. Wonderful to be here.
Surbi, let's touch upon what does product mean for you? For you, does product mean the infrastructure services for the startups and the companies that you work with? What does growth mean? I'm sure it's a version of what your companies can do, leveraging what HP services and infrastructure.
So at HPE and HPE services, Kshitij, we're helping a lot of startups, build their product in a more agile fashion, in a more secure fashion. And by product being a good moat, we mean that they have to have a good security layer around their product, so that there's no data leakage happening, and it is in norms with the country's regulations. So yeah, that's what product means.
Got it. I think that the security and the compliance angle is going to be something interesting. I'll come back to you with that. Saurabh, tell us a little bit more. Policy Bazaar, of course, is very well known from the outside. You guys you're aggregating in a consumer experience for an industry that has never been digital first, right? Tell us, how do you think about product? How do you think about growth? You work with several players in the industry that are fairly traditional, right? And I'm sure you have to deal with a lot of legacy, both in terms of mindset, infrastructure, and product. How do you tackle all of these different things together from a product and growth perspective? Saurabh, I think we can't hear you.
Hi, thanks, Shailesh. I'm sorry, I think I was on mute. And thanks for being on the panel right now. And I really feel glad to be part of this entire discussion. And just a short introduction about myself. I handle the entire policybazaar.com technology portfolio. And right from the beginning, I think I had happened to work with people who have been fairly ambitious and been involved in building businesses from scratch. So that has been the real maker spirit which has been alive right from the beginning of my career until now. I continue to spend a lot of my time in building technology, solutions, products right from scratch. And in terms of Policy Bazaar, I think you rightly said, I mean, it's a very traditional business. It always used to be driven through various other channels other than digital. And Policy Bazaar took an approach to bring a very novel approach by bringing a digital experience for the consumer. And having said that, how it appears right now, it wasn't that easy because when the entire channel is being dominated by traditional players, digital had no play, and Policy Bazaar was required to compete with the giants like Amazon and Flipkart in terms of experience, right? And trying to drive the similar kind of experience in an insurance domain, it was a mammoth effort. We have been working with all our partner ecosystem insurance companies for last 12 years to build all the pipes and integrations to drive that consumer experience. When I talk about the product and growth, in short, I think this definition has been changing over a period of time. When we started, the product definition was very different, growth was very different. At present, if I just want to take, I think any person who has been little literate, IT literate, and has a need of insurance has definitely touched upon Policy Bazaar once. For us, right now, the growth definition is to bring the customer back and keep on delivering them value. So repeat purchases is something which we are focused upon from a growth perspective. And from product perspective, the definition is still same, is the consumer centricity in whatever we do. It's a very tough proposition, I'll tell you, Kshitij. I mean, it requires a lot of guts to come in front and say that we are going to drive consumer experience in a very traditional business, but we will never shy away. We'll put our best foot forward to meet and beat the challenges and drive the superior customer experience for our customers as we move forward.
That's fantastic to hear, Saurabh. Thank you. I really believe it's only companies like Policy Bazaar who can not just change the insurance buying experience, but also the claims experience. Putting on my consumer hat, I think that is the more important trust factor that you're creating, right? And if you're helping the traditional businesses do that, that's fantastic. Anirban, fellow investor, I think that the question is very simple, but the answer might not be for you. Product growth, valuation, growth stage companies. How do you look at it all together from an investor perspective?
Very interesting question, Kshitij. So for me, I mean, like when I think about a product needs to solve either an end user pain or a problem in the market, right? And when we are thinking of growth being driven by a product, it essentially the most of the growth should be driven by a product. It need not be dependent on marketing, need not be dependent on sales. So if you've seen the transition that's happened in the B2B space, by the way, I didn't introduce myself. I look at primarily SaaS, deep tech, and healthcare investments. So I'm going to speak primarily from a B2B point of view, right? If you think about the transition that's happened over the past 15, 20 odd years, you had on-prem software, you had software on the cloud. And I think now, so you had to sell to CIOs in the beginning, then you had to sell to executives, and now you're essentially tackling the end user pain. So I think product-led growth can be primarily driven by tackling the end user pain. And when I think about that, it's primarily the acquisition, the expansion, and the retention, right? So your acquisition needs to be frictionless. From a expansion point of view, you need to add features onto the product outside the paywall, right? I mean, initially it should be without the paywall, but features with a paywall should come in. Then from a retention point of view, you've got to build as many integrations as possible. So we have a company called Lambda Test. You might have heard of them. So they've driven a lot of these strategies themselves. They've tried to remove simplify the onboarding process. They've tried to move the paywall out till the point that a product is experienced. So it's essential for your end user to experience the product and at least understand what the value the product drives before they even pay. So that's how we look at products from a B2B point of view, Kshitij. But happy to cover more as we carry on.
No, I think Anirudh, you've touched on a very interesting point, and the in the last decade, some companies or one of the companies that has done this tremendously well is of course Slack. But let me come back to you with that question more specifically. In the meantime, Badri, you're building an API-led company. You're building for some of the toughest customers out there. I don't think developers are easy customers to deal with. Tell us a little bit how you think about product and growth, as a senior technology leader in a high growth company like Razorpay, where you not only have to deal with developer expectations, which are global, and global companies are setting the bar very, very high. And how do you kind of keep the agility through it?
Yeah, I think Razorpay is like a 6-year-old company. It started off in the payment as a payment gateway, which is a core product, core offering, and then we have branched out to neo banking and lending platform. It's more like an ecosystem play. I think the primary focus area has been SMEs. I think the SME, the company wants to participate in the SME growth in India specifically, and given COVID and other situations, the digitization wave that's happening, it's kind of accelerating the growth of the SMEs in India, and we are glad to participate in the growth. And as I think a good example for comparison would be Slack, which is like a developer-led growth. Slack didn't penetrate into the CIOs or CFOs of the company. Directly, developers started running Slack on their own without telling the management, and then it got high traction. So we want something similar where developers love the product, and when developers leave a company, they go to another company, they bring in Razorpay. So that is the mindset that we try to do to attract SME customers and integrations. We make it so easy for customers. And we have a good blend of both enterprise customers as well as SMEs. We have a good blend of both. Enterprise are more expectations in terms of quality of service, like scalability, high throughputs, reliability aspects and stuff. And then SMEs are more moving towards like no code kind of apps. Right? How do I don't need to write code. I don't have the capacity to write code for my system for what I want to introduce. And how do I give them a product suite? How do I collect money in different forms? How do I pay my vendors, pay my customers, etc.? They want to do it without writing code, having to write code. There's a lot of focus on building no-code apps to power the SME side of things.
That's fantastic.
There is focus on building with agility. I think one of the pivots that we have is to be releasing products very quickly to market, features on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So we kind of encourage people to release several times a day product features to customers.
Yeah.
That helps us.
No, that's fantastic. I'm gonna come back with a very specific question on how you do that and the kind of architecture that allows you to do that. Because when you deal with a regulated sector like you do, like banking, right, and even sort of like you do with insurance, I'm sure the compliance and the regulation burdens are also heavy, right? And how you guys have figured it out is really amazing, and it's something that all of us can really learn from. But let me quickly jump back to Surabhi. Surabhi, I think you're on mute. There is this context with startups when they start, for especially in the B2B enterprises. It's really hard to score a large enterprise customer. We are all aware of the mountain of challenges companies have to cross to become enterprise ready, even after the product is ready, right? So there is product readiness, there's product market fit, you've engineered a fantastic solution for the problem at hand. But just getting the first enterprise client means getting empaneled, getting your CIO checklist done, things like ISO or SOC certifications and things like that. Tell us a little bit, how have you guys helped companies get ready on this journey, right? And when you start working with them, what are the most common events that you have seen trigger where companies and startups start coming to you saying that help us get enterprise ready for scale and growth now?
Yeah, Kshitij. So actually, this is one of the questions that I get asked around a lot. That how does a startup become enterprise ready, and how do they go and approach enterprise customers, and how do they grow? So one thing that we always advise as HPE is that while you have a product which is SaaS based, and it has a lot of advantages to have a SaaS based product. You can launch it quickly, and you can there's less maintenance, and setup is easy and all of that. But whenever you want to grow, you have to think of a more stable sort of a architecture, and you have to kind of hedge your risks, right? So currently, all the startups mostly are born on the cloud, right? And you have to kind of hedge your risk and put your feet down, and have certain processes in place, and have a hybrid sort of a strategy, okay? And you kind of have an architecture in a certain cloud, and have a multi-cloud architecture, so that you're able to move across different clouds. You're able to have more agility of launching products across various clouds. Your teams are agile enough to work from different places. That is also a strategy for a good backup, or a good DR, or a good having a resilient architecture, so having high availability. These things are very important. So having a multi-cloud strategy is one thing. The second thing is, whatever product you're launching, whether you're in the fintech space or whether you're in telecom space, highly regulated industries, right? You have to keep the regulators' point of view in mind, and keep making sure that your data is secure. There's no data leak. You got to prevent all of that. So those are the certain parameters that you have to keep in mind. So these are basically 2 points that we kind of advise on.
That's interesting. So what I hear is you're advising, product managers and key architects, infrastructure architects, while they're born in the cloud and their head is on the ground, to be also firmly planted in the enterprise needs on the ground itself, right? So I think
Yes,
the clouds
yes.
and dirt
Yes,
strategy
I
is
mean,
very,
think
very
about it,
important.
Kshitij. I mean, in the banking sector, especially, there's so much regulation. How do you keep your data secure if you do not have your own infrastructure? If you are hosted out of a shared pool, things become a little complicated. I'm not going to say very, but yes, a little difficult. If you have your own infrastructure, it is a little. You can modify that. You can design it the way you want it. So.
I think I just want to add to what Surbhi is saying. I think it's not only about putting one application one way, because every application can have a very different strategy altogether within the organization as well. And sometimes being little cloud agnostic also helps, So,
Yes.
so that's
That's actually the point I'm trying to drive, that you have to be cloud agnostic. You have to have a multi-strategy.
yeah.
That I agree, and I think Saurabh, Badri, you guys would love to hear from you. But having been a technology practitioner, the more we have access, the more we have control, the more kind of secure we feel. Does that still apply? How do you feel? For all the infrastructure providers, managed services versus in-house managed services. What is your 2 cents on that as engineering leader?
So Kshitij, I'll just take on Badri first. I think so far so good. I'll be very honest and candid in saying that in terms of data security and stability, scalability, considering India as a region, I think touch wood, I think we haven't had any issues so far. But some of the clouds had certain downtimes, being very upfront and honest. So the kind of expectations that consumers are having, the kind of expectation the business stakeholders are having, it always makes sense to have some kind of a DR strategy in place, but it should be always an active DR. Fundamentally, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you have recently heard about one of the incident happened, right, where DR was there, but it couldn't come in
Failover nahi ho
live.
paya. Yeah.
Correct. So I think active DR is a concept which I look forward to it, where one portal or one service is being served from multiple clouds, and where one cloud switches to another cloud the entire traffic in the adverse event. Though it is very unlikely it will happen, but that's the place I think we have to eventually move. Yeah, over to you, Badri.
Yeah, so I think like Razorpay, we run primarily on AWS. We do have support like multi-region, etc. But we are wary of downtimes. I think when AWS goes down, we will be caught off guard. and we are trying to be building things in an agnostic manner. We started off using RDS and a bunch of services that AWS offers. Slowly, we are moving towards self-hosting, like databases, Kafka, the data lake itself. We're kind of trying to build it on our own in an agnostic way, and slowly we'll move to a multi-cloud hybrid cloud approach. We're looking at Azure and Google Cloud and trying to have failover mechanisms there to provide a high availability to our customers.
No, I think that's fantastic, Badri, and I think that's the hedge also what Surpi was talking about, that every organization at scale needs to kind of create this hedge. Saurabh, let me just quickly jump to you to get your perspectives on a slightly different tangent, right? I want to understand, I think, and the question is both for Badri and Saurabh. You guys deal with stakeholders in regulated ecosystems, right? And let's just agree the maturity of the stakeholders that you have to deal with as fintech is varying on a very large spectrum, right? Some are far ahead, some are midway, some have fantastic support, but some are lagging behind in terms of providing you the core infrastructure and the rails that your product also have to work with, right? So I imagine a lot goes on in the background. How do you kind of work with these different stakeholders at all different times? And what are the challenges that you have found? Are there hacks and tricks that you have found that instead of waiting for them to do the right thing, just create the product and tell them to install it on their side? Have such kinds of approaches work for you?
So we are B2C, but to answer your question in short, if you would have known that it's going to be such a tough job to work in a regulated sector, we would have never been there. Being very honest. See, frankly, we started with a very lot of enthusiasm. I think our co-founders were pretty keen on creating a revolution in the industry, but around the midway, we realized that it's not easy to take care of everything from a regulation perspective. And I think somewhere regulator has been also understanding that this industry has been very traditionally driven, and if at all we need to bring some change which is in the interest of consumer, some bit of rethinking is required, and they have been kind enough to basically provide us the support. But initial few years were, I think, far more challenging than what we are facing right now, because whole India ecosystem has started acknowledging that insurance can be bought or can be sold online. I tell you, 2010, I'm just putting up a very clean thought. I was joining Yashish, and someone in my relation asked me, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to sell insurance." The person said, "Bima bechoge padke itna?" So after studying so much, if you're going to sell Bima, then they used to put up a very big question mark. And I think no one was able to believe that insurance could be sold online also. So I think we overcome a lot of different challenges. Industry has also been in a lot of support. Our insurance ecosystem has also started realizing there's a lot of positives which are coming through the online customers, because your claim ratios are significantly dropping. You're getting better customers. A lot of fraudulent activities which used to happen through offline channels, where people used to make claims on things which were not desired, not at all happening, right? So I think keeping everything in view, all the directions are converging towards a very positive ecosystem in last few years, and that has really helped us to move forward on a digital insurance journey. Having said that, while we have been able to handle our insurance partner ecosystem, regulator, consumers' desires are also going multifold. And that's another area where we have to constantly work. And you won't believe that it took almost 12 years to work with all the insurance companies to get them on the platform where customers can at least buy a policy without having any friction. And I do remember the times when customers used to come on our platform. Out of the 15 providers, only 10 providers used to show the code, because 5 providers' systems were not up and running. And for them, it was not a bread and butter. Their business was not running only through digital medium. They had a lot of legacy in place, which was working very well for insurance providers through other channels. So we worked very closely with them. We made insurance companies to understand that there is an advantage of getting customers online. and let's work together, build the entire ecosystem. So I think the up to the purchase parts journeys have started becoming better. In fact, whatever was left, pandemic has kind of bridged that. So there are areas like medicals, KYC, and because of regulations, we were not able to take the online route. We have been able to capture that online route now. And areas where we have to significantly work with the entire ecosystem is the claims, which you said. Post issuance services have to be matchless because customer experience expectations are at that level. And if you ask me, for us, the only thing which has been making us work towards where we are right now, and we had been honestly following that, was customer experience. Keep customer at the center, work with the entire ecosystem, and try to solve the problem for the customer. Everything will fall in place, because if you have a very right and positive intent to solve customer problem, as anyone said, right, everything will just follow. There are hiccups, there will be issues, but you will overcome them and you will move forward.
Fair enough. Saurabh, I sense the, when you say 12 years, a little over a decade is a very long time to kind of shape, a lot of thoughts of leadership in this industry. I want to double click a little bit, ask you a more technical question. Tell me why in this industry, or what are your thoughts of why has there not been a standardization of data exchange between stakeholders in this industry? And it just seems logical that that should have already happened in the last decade. And so, what's preventing that from happening?
So, Kshitij, I think we have to understand, we have to go back. Insurance is a very old concept, right? It's not a new concept. But if you look back 10 years back, how you used to buy insurance, someone in your relation used to come to your door and say that I'm going to sell you insurance without understanding even the meaning of what you're buying, right? You used to buy because the person used to influence you so badly, and because his commission is intact and related to that particular policy selling, right, you used to purchase.
Mhm.
And this entire agency channel, banca channel, and other offline channels were so dominant in the industry. So people have never thought about digital as a primary mode. Imagine, I mean, 10 years back, I used to do a lot of net banking. But why in the BFSI segment, insurance was left alone? Because the main part of the business was never coming from digital channel. It was coming from other channels. And that was the reason why insurance companies were okay, because they have to continue driving their business, they have to settle the claims, etc., etc. But and they ended up having a lot of legacy also at the back end. If I go and see, out of the 15-20 companies that we work with, they have very sound systems at the back, but that those systems have been existing from many years. It's like a technology which works wonderfully for the job which was available at the time for the needs that were existing, right? But the moment you start looking at the current need, where you want to give your digital consumer experience within millisecond, those technologies
Mhm.
don't work. And what we have started doing with insurance company, that they have started taking out some of these millisecond response time systems out of the whole big systems and started driving digital experience. But still, the larger part of the work happens in those backend systems which have been existing for years, and they are very sound system, I must tell you. I mean, it's like technology that works, technology that serves their business needs. However, that fell short in the case of a digital experience, and we are trying to basically work with them to make that experience work. And thankfully, I think last 3-4 years, our partner ecosystem realizes that there are a lot of advantages in getting online customers, because overall their claim ratios are going to be superior as we move forward.
Mm. That's very interesting. On that, Badri, I want to quickly kind of jump to you, right? You guys have built something that has scaled so tremendously fast, right? 6 years is a very short time, to have started with payment gateways and then expanded to multiple verticals like banking and lending, right? But when I was talking to you earlier, you said it's all done on a common architecture. Give us a few insights of what are these architecture choices that have been made over the past few years that has allowed you to enter three different verticals, and still keep this momentum of growth, momentum of releases across your infrastructure so high.
Sure. So I think the company started in 2015. I think originally the architecture was based on PHP and MySQL. It's like a traditional monolithic architecture, we have a bunch of developers being able to run fast. The idea and the founders, this is a language that the founders knew well. Like they start with something there. I think focus was on releasing things fast. We have something called a CI/CD pipeline, which is your tooling support to be able to release code on a daily basis with the checks and balances. We had that in place from day one, and UX was there from day one. We had a UX team building high quality user experience. And then around 2017, we saw the scale picking up significantly, and then we started moving towards kind of a microservices journey. We kind of narrowed down on Golang as the primary tech stack. It is an interesting choice. Kind of it offers a simplicity of in terms of deployment, simplicity in terms of the language features, capabilities, and then it also provides very high performance, very close to like single milliseconds, like 5 millisecond or 7 millisecond latencies, which is unheard of in the Java world. So we kind of took a call to move to Golang, which was kind of a good decision. And then we had a lot of rough edges with the Golang because of lack of third-party open source frameworks, like the quality of Apache, etc., was not there in Golang. And since it was Google backing it up, we presumed over a period of time it'll get better and better as the language matures in itself, which it did. And then we had to build a lot of frameworks, tooling support on Golang to overcome the teething issues, etc. And then at some point we built RazorPayX. Around 2018, we actually it was built in 4 months, the first version of the banking product.
Wow.
So given that
Wow.
there's a time crunch, yeah, in 4 months, the end-to-end from inception to release happened in 4 months. So we had to work at a very fast pace. So we took a hybrid approach of building some components in a monolithic service and some in the microservices, based on what the timelines we had to meet the business timelines. So we built it in a hybrid model. Then over a period of time, we started moving it to a major chunk into microservice architecture. I would call it macro services architecture because a lot of companies like Uber, for example, have struggled with over engineering in terms of microservices that they have more services than the people in the company than number of developers. It becomes very hairy beast to manage if it's overdone. So we kind of want to have services for teams to operate. Each team, independent teams that we have, we allow them to build microservices that manages for them to have agility and scale. And we try to make it meaningful. It's not every functionality is not a service. And then we kind of run on AWS primarily. We are very elastic in nature, being a API company. There's no control over the traffic. Anybody can hit your API at any point. There could be a sale event in Nika, there could be sale event in Goibibo, Flipkart, etc. For some, we know in advance where we provision, but for in many cases, as we go forward, it's not possible to auto provision, which could be very expensive. So we rely on auto scaling, horizontally scaling the infrastructure as we get traffic. We need to scale very quickly, and then scale down once the traffic diminishes to kind of control the costs in a big way. And then as we grow the scale aspects, we had to go into NoSQL databases, DynamoDB, Cassandra. We use something called TIDB, which is a massively parallel database that we use to scale a lot of reads that we have. And also we are investing a lot in core platform. Like I manage a platform engineering team in Razorpay, where we build core infrastructure that enables product teams to move fast. Like something like Capital team was able to leverage a lot of components that we build. We have a ledger as a service, we have notification platform as a service. So a lot of these components, the Capital team could take and go live much faster with higher velocity and leverage, and not worry about things like scalability, reliability, etc., which is baked into the platform. So I think a lot of focus on infrastructure and like regulations, for example, like they are PCI regulated. So it has a large bearing on the developer productivity. They will not get access to production machines. Like there's a lot of controls in place. So we build a lot of self-service mechanisms to enable developers to move fast. Because without that, we'll go through a lot of security checks and everything will take its own course of time. So we kind of build common guardrails with automation baked in so that people can move fast.
That's very interesting. I'm picking up some very interesting threads from what you're saying, Badri. You said your team built Ledger as a service for which you had an internal customer. When are you releasing that to the outside world?
Yeah. So I think the idea is when we build something, we build it generically. So whatever platform we build, we are kind of building it generically so that we can, at some point, we can actually open up to the outside world. I think first thing is we want to strive for internal adoption, scale it up, build the capability that we think is meaningful, and then we kind of see how we can sell it as a product outside.
Very interesting.
But the
And
thought
with the
process is there.
architecture, right? With the stack, that you mentioned, you mentioned Golang, and it almost seems like the philosophy is choose the right tool for the right service for the right job, right? Is that something that's across the stack? Because there was a perception about a decade ago that Java is the only way to go for enterprise readiness. I don't see that existing anymore globally, and not even in India.
Yeah.
Is that fair to assume, Badri?
Yeah, so I think Java has its own legacy challenges. It's a traditional language and a lot of boilerplate, a lot of code you have to churn out. Even though there is a lot of automation and tooling
Mm-hmm.
support, it is
Yeah.
it is the history is catching up with the language. I think the newer languages like Rust and Golang, they take the good things out of these languages and package something small. I think what we saw was the language was the way the people use the language kind of makes it very hard for it to be extended, etc. So I think in that sense, the newer stack tries to capture the good things about from all these languages and then tries to package it in a meaningful way. And lot of things are experiments. It's not like we thought Golang is the right way. We experimented for some
Mm.
parts, figured out it's the right direction, and then slowly navigated. It's not like one fine day we figured out it's the right language. So it's more an experiment. We saw there were people clamoring for Java, for example, saying that, oh, why are we doing this? It's kind of more challenging compared to Java. We didn't have clear bearing at that time on why we are doing this. It was more an experiment, but eventually it panned out well. And also it becomes easier to attract engineers. There's one more pivot to tech stack is to at being able to attract engineers to the company and being cutting edge, etc. Golang has actually helped us a lot in that sense. And a lot of
Okay.
opportunity to do open source contributions with the teething issues that we notice in Golang. Right? There's a lot of opportunity for us to
Yeah.
contribute a lot of libraries, etc., which don't exist in Golang today compared to Java of yesterday.
Just a quick last question. Do you encourage your engineering teams and individual stakeholders in engineering to actively contribute back to open source? Is that also a philosophy that
Yeah.
you guys have adopted?
So yes. So I think like as we hit scale, we are contributing to open source. Like for example, we use Apache Pinot for overlap system. We are actually making bug fixes. We use something called Hypertrace that we use for monitoring system. We're working with the Hypertrace team to actually create a roadmap itself because it's too complicated. It's more cutting edge. We are building some services open source first, like something called Service Bus. We're kind of building it open source first, and there's a lot of encouragement for people to meaningfully contribute to open source,
That's
not open source
fantastic.
for the
That's
sake of open
fantastic to
source.
hear. Yeah, yeah. No, that's beautiful. Saurabh, I see you nodding your head as well. Do you guys have that focus at Policy Bazaar as well, Saurabh? And an overarching question, maybe if you guys both, Saurabh and Badri, can just take a very short 30 seconds to tell us in the next 5 years from now, within the spaces that you are in, will you guys actively take up the challenge to build these common data exchange protocols under the regulated space, or do you think that is something that is somebody else's job? How are you guys thinking about that? Sort of, you're on mute. I'm sorry again.
My bad. So you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a massive opportunity lies over there, given the non-standardized way of working in insurance industry. There's a massive opportunity for us to bring standardization over there. Having said that, we want to do that, but there are so many other issues which are right now open to be resolved, which require to be handled. We seem to be still, I think, couple of years away. That's the way it appears. Uh, I think in terms of open architecture contribution, etc., as Badri said, wherever we get some time and opportunity, we tend to contribute because that's the philosophy of open source. And I personally hail from an open source background right from the beginning. So I've seen how Java has moved, from time when everyone used to work on Java and no one is right now moving on Java. One language which is catching up very fast, and I have started. I've got transformed in last 6-7 from .NET to .NET Core. .NET I never liked really much, but .NET Core is something which is making me feel that this language has a potential to make bigger things as we move forward because it's more becoming open source. I know
Yeah.
it's a language which is not very loud and clear in the public, but eventually I think it would be there.
Very interesting. Anirvan, familiar territory, fellow investor. I want to touch back to your question. You mentioned selling directly to the consumers, to the developers. Anirvan, you're on mute just before you start speaking. Tell me a little bit on how you're thinking. Are you thinking the framework, sales framework, like a Slack-like approach, right? Go to the developer first, spend with the, take that pocket share. Is India ready for it? Are we ready to sell directly to developers and dev managers, especially in the B2B space? And you mentioned one of your companies, Lambda, that seems to have done it really well. Tell us, what are you seeing from a landscape perspective here?
Right. Yeah, Kshitij. So even Badri touched upon that point, which is very interesting. The way they targeted developers with the API. So I think that's gradually becoming an approach, but I'm not sure from an India point of view. I think in India depends upon where the developers are, right? Like for startups, mid-market SaaS companies, and high-growth SaaS companies, definitely you can sell to developers. The way Slack, Agora, Zoom, not Zoom that much, but a lot of products are being built specifically for developers. Stripe, for example, right? So we are seeing that transition with Lambda. However, I mean, they have a healthy mix of customer base, right? It's across 100 odd countries. So you're selling to the developer. Vast majority is in India, but they're not building products particularly for India, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not building products for India, it's very, very, very rare to sell to developers. What we've seen, your product should be used globally. Only then you can sell to the developer base. And even Saurabh brought up a very interesting point around how you distribute your product, right? So you need to distribute your product where your users lie. So in Lambda's example, we were talking about user pain, right? What we did over there, we tried to solve for the onboarding experience. We tried to solve for how much time it takes to experience the product. What I mean by that, you have visitors. Now that those visitors have to know what value they are driving from that product, so they have to sign up, and post sign up they need to experience that product. So that total time to value experience, right? That is what we are focusing on shortly, right? From an India perspective, I really doubt if there's a large scope to target the developer base, unless they're creating products for the global markets, right? Then your budgets are higher, you can purchase the product easily. So you have the ability to actually pay for the product, which is not very common for India-focused products, right? If the developer is building a product for India-focused companies, so your budget needs to be enough. But however, in spite of saying that, I think that transition is happening, right? If you think about developers at Razorpay, I'm sure Badri will agree that you give them the flexibility of choosing which product they should be using, right? So there's a bottoms-up sale that can happen. But what we are seeing is good design is not just good enough. Saurabh brought about the point on how, thanks to the kind of consumer apps we're using, right? There's a expectation of a high UI UX experience, a very good UI UX experience. But we've figured that the end user pain solving is also very important. That's worked very well for Lambda, right? We have a freemium offering, and literally within 50 seconds flat, a high power user can actually experience the product and start running their test scripts on the product. So I think that's been the key in Lambda's growth.
That's very interesting. I want to understand, Anirvan, your perspective on, outside of the obvious aggressive pricing strategies and a superior product experience. What are the other ways that you have seen startups take away market share from legacy players, from incumbents? Any examples of global companies that come to mind that have done it really well?
That's very interesting. So if I move away from product-led growth, right, Kshitij, if I think about what other strategies have been employed in the B2B SaaS space, one of the best examples is Viva, right? Like if you think about Viva, the way they focused on a particular vertical, and there are ample examples of that. A tailored product for a vertical, which understands the major problems that exist in the workflow, right? Viva did that really well. It's valued at 40 billion and above probably right now. And then there's Mindbody, right? They understood their end customer, which was spas, and they built a product tailored to their needs. So I think a verticalized focus has also been able to establish what product-led growth companies have done, right? The CAC tends to be lower, like 1/8 of what horizontal SaaS companies have. similar to product-led, right? Product-led growth companies have a lower CAC, thanks to which the capital efficiency is better. Same is the case with verticalized softwares. And that's something that we are seeing globally, right? And I believe it could happen in India, but Indian companies need to start paying for software, right? So that's should be willing to pay for high quality software. That's not that transition hasn't happened yet, but you will see that in India as well, and there are ample examples globally. There's Viva, there's MindBody, there's Guidewire, which is catered to the insurance, and all multi-billion-dollar market cap. We don't talk that much about verticalized software because we have the Freshworks, the Atlassians of the world that are running everything, right? And then there's you might have heard of Procore, which is again for it's targeted at the construction industry. So those kind of software are coming out where your CAC is lower. You have the opportunity of expanding the TAM by having other offerings like a marketplace, like a fintech layer. All of these activities are happening in the global landscape and very similar to product-led growth, the metrics that you see over there.
That's interesting. We're almost running, towards the end of the session. I'm gonna start.
Kshitij, we've lost you. I don't think we see your video anymore.
Yeah, let me just while I fix the video, let me just lob a question to Surbi in that time, and I'm going to start plugging in some audience questions as well. What I wanted to understand, Surbi, with HP support on multi-cloud strategy, and you mentioned multi-cloud as well.
I think we completely lost him. I think his network. Yeah.
Maybe one of us can take up the question, I think, while he's coming back.
Some of the Q&As, right? Yeah.
So something has come up on Q&A side. I can just, I think, pick up one of these questions which has come on the blockchain. And the question is, how is blockchain going to influence the business of payments and insurance? I think, Badri, you can cover the payments part. I can just talk about insurance. And I think blockchain, as the name suggests, as the philosophy comes, it's some point time it is going to kick off and become the mainstream technology. But right now, we are still far away from having a very practical implementation of it in the insurance sector. There are companies which have been trying to basically secure policy documents or claim documents through the technology, but I think these are very small firms which are working in the background. That is not in India, that too in abroad. So I do believe the blockchain is yet to pick up, but philosophy is right. So it will have, sooner or later, will have mainstream adoption as we move forward. So over to you, Badri, on the payment side.
Yeah. So I think in India, I think people believe the banks, for example. Right? I think they need somebody third party who's trustable for them to trust. People don't trust technology as is. It takes a long time learning curve and etc. to understand blockchain technology to build a trust. They are more comfortable with driving trust through some external entity like a bank. So in that sense, I think there is promise, but it's going in India at least it's a few years away from seeing the end of light.
I completely agree. Yeah. So I'll pick up another one, guys. I'm just taking a shot on this until Kshitij comes back. There's a topic on the maybe off topic, but how to enter in the sectors where commission exists heavily. Like in Policy Bazaar, there would have been resistance from offline policy sellers. It's a tough choice. I think knowing too much about some business and getting into it also makes it tough to get into it. I think we when we got into it, we really did not think too much about it. We only had one thing at the back of our mind, that what is in the interest of consumer in the industry, and we keep on pursuing. But I would say that it was a very tough situation. We had resistance. We continue to face the resistance from different sectors, different channels. But if you have a belief, you have a vision, if you have money in your bank account, right, then only you can pursue it. I think you need a good financial backup to cover up these sectors. And more importantly, I think what Anivaran said in the beginning, it's a consumer centricity or consumer focused approach helps you in moving forward on such scenarios. But tough one. I'll be very clear. It's a tough. You will have a resistance for sure. Surbi, you want to take the one?
Yeah.
Anyone?
So I was just going to, so there's a question that says, doesn't multi-cloud strategy also make a business more prone to data threats? And is there something a business can do to ensure data protection while using multi-cloud? Yes. It actually doesn't make the business more prone to data threats because you're hedging your bets across various clouds. And since the infrastructure, the underlying infrastructure of all the clouds are separate, and you can install various data leak prevention softwares that are there in the industry that will make sure that you have a clean pipe available and your data is moving via a clean pipe across various infrastructures, various clouds which are there, and there is no security lapse that happens. So no, if you have a multi-cloud strategy, that just helps you hedge your bets across multiple clouds, reduce cost. I think cost is a very important factor. We haven't discussed it as of now in this discussion, but cost is a very important factor while you're building your product. You cannot build a product which is so costly that it just wipes out half your market. So cost is really important, at what cost you're building. And I think everyone in the panel has mentioned using open source, and completely on with that. As HP, we also support and we also contribute to the open source community. So yes, open source, trying to use more of open source, trying to get it as resilient as possible while maintaining the cost. That's really important. So yeah.
So, Surabhi, let me just double click on that a little bit. Tell us, in your experience, for specific B2B companies, what is the percentage of startups that you have helped have built and succeeded with on-prem offerings as opposed to a cloud solution or a hybrid solution?
Yeah, so Kshitij, we've been actually working with quite a few startups, and especially the larger ones, and who are set stage in growing and being the next corporate or being the next enterprise. So working with them in a advisory fashion and trying to get all their processes in place, because a lot of startups, we've seen that they, while they're fast paced in building product, and everything is moving for them, they kind of miss out a little bit on the processes part. They kind of miss out a little bit on the cost aspect of how is how costly it is to use various technologies. So we kind of advise them on various of these aspects, and we try to move them into a different a hybrid sort of a model wherein they can hedge their costs. So if you save costs on your underlying infrastructure, you have more available capital to do more product development, to do more customer centric program, to launch more customer centric programs. So we try to help our customers cut down their cost so that they can spend more on their businesses and innovation and product development and all of that. So that is where we really are advising our customers and helping them with their growth strategy.
Got it.
Hey, so I have a
I'm
question.
gonna,
Like, so
yeah, go ahead.
hey, yeah. So basically, I think like a startup, I just launched on AWS, right? Typically AWS or GCP. At what point in time should I explore looking at a hybrid cloud option? Right? Because is it a time when the
Yeah,
cost
yeah.
incur is kind of becoming expensive? The data security aspect becomes expensive. At
Yes.
what point in time do you think? Yeah.
So Badri, how we're doing it is we are kind of moving to a outcome based offering. So it depends on, for example, for certain customers, we are saying that per transaction, we're kind of dividing the heads as to where really are they spending, how much is their marketing spend on that per transaction, how much is their cost, how much is their HR and financial and their development costs. So we're trying to break that, and then we're trying to come down to what really is the tech cost for them, and out of that how much can we optimize it. So for a company like us, any startup which is wanting to build a product or has a product built on a public cloud, and they're looking towards an alternate form, is that is the right time for them to explore. Any company, to be honest, it is the right time if they are thinking of a data resilience strategy, if they're thinking of having a multi cloud, and if they really want to break down that per transaction cost or per customer acquisition cost, or whatever the outcome is, whatever their CEO, or how do they really balance, look at it in their balance sheets, customer acquisition cost, how much of marketing spend, how much of tech spend, how much of your miscellaneous cost. Tech spend, say, can we reduce the cost? That is what we're trying to do.
Got it.
I hope.
I think, yeah, no, thanks, Surbi. I think that the cost aspect is very, very important, and especially, in the case of startups where limited runway is a serious, thing that the founders and the founding team always have constantly on the top of their mind. Let me jump to, because we have engineering and product leaders. I think the burning question and the always existential question is feature prioritization. Saurabh, Badri, even Anirvan, would love to hear from you. How do you guys, as technology leaders, as go-to-market strategists, think about feature prioritization, features that help increase moats versus features that are important to reduce tech debt? How are you guys thinking about that?
So I'll just take up. So in Policy Bazaar, what we do, we have a very clear structure that we have created. Very top, at the top of the funnel, I think there's a business stakeholder, and then there's a product person, and then there's an engineering guy, right? And so the entire structure works in a kind of a pod system where the business person have a very clear goal in mind, that I want to achieve this much. And when there's a business goal, basis that we tend to get the very clear feature demand, and that has to be marked with some kind of a return, ROI return, before we start working on the feature. Because see, one thing which I have seen in any organization, many organizations I have seen, that your engineering people will end up being so busy, you can't ever figure out what they're working on. A lot of times you figure out that your PE teams are busy, but when the outcome has to be measured, you find that you are still there where we were. So we kept it very clean and clear that I think let this be driven through the business, and product and engineering got to take on the job of delivering the ROI that they are anticipating. That's point number one. So this is a decisioning that has to happen at the time of conceptualizing an idea or incepting a feature. Once the feature is live, we tend to try to bring it live as soon as possible, go live as soon as possible, and then start measuring and improvising. That's the idea. And if at all we feel that something has not worked, very quickly jump onto the feature and say that it's a sunk cost, guys. Just forget it and then let's move on. So we don't just try to basically keep on improving and if we don't really get anything out of it. So a lot of times such situations help. Having said, this is the practically doesn't look like a achievable target. So we are somewhere around 80-85%. 15% still we have some bandwidth where things are happening without a very clear ROI model. We are trying to fix it.
That's great. I think we're just about the end of time, but Badri, Anirvan, would love a 30-second overview on feature prioritization, from you guys as well. How are you guys thinking about it?
I can go first. Okay, so in Reserpay, we follow the OKR model, where the company sets an annual goal, and then we break it down into quarterly goals. And then even a tech item also is a goal. Right? For example, scalability and reliability is a product feature for us, because without scale and reliability, you can't sell the product to large customers. Right? So, and then if your tech debt, for example, has to have a meaningful impact, like Saurav was saying. Okay, if I do this tech debt, if I fix it, is it going to improve my agility or quality? Mostly it's one of these two. So as long as folks are able to quantify it clearly and showcase it, we kind of have a prioritization exchange with the product managers, and we kind of prioritize these tasks together as a team. Right? But the key is to have a metric that it moves, not something that is doesn't have. We do have experiments every now and then where it doesn't have metrics, but in general, 80-90% of the items should be driven by metrics and outcomes.
Okay. Great point, Badri. Yeah. So what Saurabh touched upon is very important. We've seen that work really well with some of our companies, which is essentially tying your business metrics to your product or feature metrics, right? And one way you could probably do that. I mean, most products have a multi-modular approach, right? There are multiple features that, especially from a B2B point of view. So it's very important to keep tracking how many of your features have been used. So what tends to happen if there are 10 features in your product, 10 modules in your product, right? We've seen that only 4 to 5 get used actively. So in a lot of ways, those remaining features tend to be irrelevant, but when you remove them, you tend to lose a customer base because although they don't use it very often, what happens is it ties into their workflow. So it's very important to understand why those features are not being used often. So that's how we prioritize their different modules or different features. But tying your business metrics to your features is extremely important. So as Badri put, KPIs, having the right metrics in place is imperative.
Right, right. No, thank you, folks. We are at the end of our session. I think I'll just quickly summarize. Some fantastic things that have come up. I think the engineering leaders, product leaders, that we have in our ecosystem are very much aligned to things like open source. I'm very happy to see that we are all actively increasing our contribution back to open source as a foundational element in our ecosystem as well. I think the agility of tech organizations that leaders such as you, Badri, such as you, Saurabh, over the decade that you guys have built has put us in a position. I honestly feel that the world really underestimates that kind of capability, tech and engineering capability that we have built here, locally. And Atmanirbhar, of course, is the current theme in the macro. But I think we are very much ready and poised to have the world depend on us to build a lot of solutions that we can engineer here and will actually be scalable and reliable around the world with really high quality, right? And we're seeing that how we're creating experiences, consumer-led experiences. And Anirban, you are helping shape that, bring that into focus and shape that in a very active manner in the startup ecosystem. And Sorby, you guys are supporting, the transition in a very effective way, for these startups and large enterprises, to become to actually the most important in their journey, for the tipping point to happen, right? Only when they become enterprise ready, that's where they're ready for the tipping point. I think for that to happen, all in all, I think it's been fantastic. Folks, everyone, thank you so much. Very enlightening, not just enlightening, I think the frameworks are very, very informative of how you guys think. It's been great, and thank you again, everyone, on behalf of the audience as well. Hope you had a good time. Akash?
Yeah. Thank you guys. It was, as Shita said, very informative session. I guess we all knew that how to use technology, but these strategies that you shared were very important for most of our viewerships, and I'm pretty sure everyone really enjoyed them. So thank you again for taking your time out and having this amazing session, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are at the end of the session. Hi,
Yes, we
Prashasti.
are. Hi,
Why are you
Akash.
here again?
I'm here because today is the last day, and I could not hijack your session for like a little while. You've
Right, like
been,
always.
you've been, you've been my favorite session to hijack. Let me just put it out there. All right, but honestly, I sure am going to miss the past 3 days, including today. Are you not?
I would. This session has been so amazing. There have been so many amazing speakers, so many amazing sessions going on, master classes, panel discussion, fireside chats. It is an amazing experience. I'm going
It's
to go
mind
back and
blowing.
actually see the
And
recordings as well.
actually, but you know what? For me, not only will I miss the insights, the talks, the amazing anecdotes and experiences, but I will also miss connecting with the audience, reading what they had to say, and especially those amazing memes and GIFs. They were the highlight of my day for so long. Have you seen the love that people have been shouting on us on
Oh,
Twitter?
yes, I've been scrolling on Twitter like crazy. These memes and
Right?
posts are amazing. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm going to show you a quick glimpse of the things that I prepared. Look at this. These are the tweets that we have
Wow.
received only yesterday. This is just, it's not about 3 days. Okay, this is just yesterday. Something as simple as hashtag the Maker Summit 2021. Too good. I love it. Look at this. We're getting tweets
Wow.
from all across the globe. I didn't
This is
understand
from
this.
Japan. Wow.
So I use
Amazing.
Google Translate. She's written amazing things. So I'm going to reply to this one.
You
Look at
should.
this.
This was
People
the
are
session I was
sending
in. Yeah. Go on.
people are sending photos of how they've set up, how, look at this. People are also sharing threads after threads of what they've learned, their key takeaways, to help as many people out as they can. Do you see this? Look at
This
this.
is
Not
beautiful.
only have,
This is
but
beautiful.
here, I will tell you the most beautiful part. Not only are people sharing their favorite quotes or takeaways, but people have actually started recruiting speakers for TMS 2022.
Are you
I love
serious?
these people. Yes, and look at this. People are doing polls on Twitter. It's You guys are just amazing. I have to thank you all for all the love, for all the amazing things that you guys have been saying about us, texting us, putting on Twitter, feed everywhere. Now, before you go, that make sure that you utilize your breaks. TMS was not only about you learning from the sessions, but also about you connecting and networking with as many people as you can. So go check out our reception. We've created the perfect platform where you can not only chat and network with whoever you want, but also interact with Netcore, HPE, Amplitude, Inc42, and more at the exhibition booth. Make sure you do it too, Akash. We might
Yeah,
as
well,
well talk to some
as
people.
soon as I'm closing the session, you'll find me in the networking lounge. Don't worry about it.
Wonderful. I'll see you all there then. This was amazing. Thanks, you guys.
Bye
Bye
bye,
bye.
guys. Bye, guys.